All right. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with the Awakened by Yahuwah Fellowship Assembly and Yahuwah Almighty and Yahusha Messiah. So we are going to be going to our Torah portion. We're starting at Deuteronomy 7 all the way to 11. Okay, so here we go. Deuteronomy 7. And Yahuwah, your Elohim, shall bring you into the land into which you go to possess it, and shall remove great nations from before you, the Hittite, Girgashite, Amorite, Canaanite, Perizzite, Evite, Jebusite, 7 nations more numerous and stronger than you, and Yahuwah your Elohim shall deliver them into your hands. Then you shall smite them, you shall utterly destroy them, you shall not make a covenant with them, neither shall you pity them. Now notice from these verses so far, does he say not to make a covenant with any Gentile? He says not to make a covenant with these nations. Okay, it's very specific. Neither shall you contract marriages with them. Okay, so you can't intermarry with certain genetical lineages, you could say. Okay, you shall not give your daughter to his son. You shall not take his daughter to your son. For he will draw away your son from me, and he will serve other mighty ones. Yahuwah will be very angry with you, and you will soon utterly destroy you. And oh wow, I don't even have the compare view I wanted. Let me just fix that real quick. Come on. Whoa. Select Bible text. Sorry about that. We're at verse 4 here. For some reason, my programs are being a little slow right now. All right, so let me change that to Samaritan Pentateuch, and then Targum Unclos have a 3-way parallel here with the Septuagint. Come on. Wow, program, really? Gonna be slow today? Really? I think there's something with the shared screen here where it does that. I don't get that. Come on. This is being stupid. Wow, so now the Word software just closed out. That's wonderful. Great start. Father, give me patience. This technology is about to make me go crazy. All right. Let's see here. So we left off at verse 4, I think, everyone. So just be patient with me right here. I'm going to try to get this up and running very quickly right now. There we go. Yeah, I think the shared screen is the problem. When I try to change stuff on the shared screen, it like goes crazy for some reason. All right. So okay, here we go with the 3-way here. Okay. Verse 5, I believe we are at. Okay. So far we got forbidden marriage. Don't make covenants with these specific nations because they'll lead you to worship other mighty ones. Okay. But thus shall you do to them. You shall destroy their altars. You shall break down their pillars. You shall cut down their groves. By the way, groves are ashram or ashra poles, just to look, FYI. Okay. You shall burn with fire the graven images of their mighty ones. Mind you, this is all context of going into the land. That you're not supposed to do this in a land not your own. Okay, the context of this whole chapter starts off by saying, I think even the previous chapter says, these are the commandments you are to do when you go into the land. Okay, so keep that in context. For you are a set apart people to Yahuwah your Elohim. Yahuwah your Elohim chose you to be to him a peculiar people beyond all nations that are upon the face of the earth. It was not because you are more numerous than all the other nations that Yahuwah preferred you and Yahuwah made you choice of you, for you are fewer in number than all other nations. But because Yahuwah loved you, and as keeping the oath which he swore to your fathers, Yahuwah brought you out with a strong hand. Okay. And Yahuwah redeemed you from the house of bondage out of the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. You shall know, therefore, that Yahuwah your Elohim, he is Elohim, a trustworthy Elohim who keeps covenant and mercy for them that love him. Okay? Unconditional love is not biblical.
His commands.
It's not biblical to say unconditional love, okay? What does it say? Who does he love? Those that love him.
Keep his commands.
And keeps his commands is the definition of loving him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying he loves everyone. Okay, that's another misconception people have because of John taking an extreme ecumenical understanding of John 3:16 will have you not understanding the rest of the Bible, because clearly Yahuwah does not like certain sinners. Even David says, you hate lawless people. Like David saying about Yahuwah hates sinners. So you can't I don't want to go into a whole other topic about it, but I'm just saying the whole unconditional love is a man-made doctrine. Okay, so, and for those that keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and who repay them that hate him, meaning those that are lawless, he repays them to their face, to destroy them utterly, and will not be slack with them that hate him. He will repay them to their face. So basically the old saying is, I love those that love me, I hate those that hate me. You shall keep therefore the commands and the ordinances and these right rulings which I command you this day to do. And it shall come to pass when you shall have heard these ordinances and shall have kept and done them, that Yahuwah your Elohim shall keep for you the covenant and mercy which he swore to your fathers. And he will love you and barak you and multiply you, and he will barak the offspring of your body and the fruit of your land, your grain, your wine, and your oil, the herds of your oxen and the flocks of your sheep, on the land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers to give you. You shall be baruch beyond all nations. There shall not be among you impotent or barren one, or among your cattle. So those are the barakas for obeying Yahuwah. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall remove. Oh, I'm sorry, Sister Marissa. I just noticed you had a hand up. Go ahead.
I have a quick question. You know that word Barack? I don't know. It's kind of, you know how we call Barack Obama? Is Barack actually a valid word for us to use, or is that man-made?
Yeah, I believe what was probably, I wouldn't be surprised if Obama's lineage somehow goes back to, I mean, where is he from? Kenya, I think.
Originally, yes, he is.
Yeah, so it's very possible some Hebrew people could have went to Kenya at some point in time, and that phrase actually became a name. I know that way before Barack Obama was ever born, the Hebrew word, the correct word for blessed instead of blessed is actually baraka. Like it's not just Barak, but baraka. So, and that's the actual legitimate word for like present tense. Like there's actually 3 versions of the word. The U at the end is past tense. So where you see blessed with the D at the end, it's actually supposed to be Baruch with a U. And in the Masoretic, they have it as Be-Raka. That's the only difference, is the Masoretic changed the to a eh, pretty much. So, but as far as I know, it is a legitimate Hebrew word. Probably most likely is somehow it got passed down from generation to generation at some point as I guess a first name for people. And somehow he was named that. And it's just, I guess, kind of an interesting coincidence, you could say. But
well, actually, his first name was really Barry.
Oh, really? Huh.
Barry Santoro, yeah.
I never knew that.
It's Barry Sorrento is his actual birth name.
I wonder.
He had an Italian mother. I remember that.
Yeah, so maybe they tried to give him that name to hide the fact that he's part Italian. I don't know. That's a possibility. I know that I know that for a fact, though, in the Hebrew language, that baraka means to barak someone, to what we call in the modern English language, incorrectly we call bless, and that goes a whole nother study about all the incorrect terminology the Catholic Church has inserted into the Bible. That's a whole nother study for a whole nother day. But the correct Hebrew word for the present tense is Barak, and then you have Baruch, which is the past tense. And then so anyway, just wanted to explain that. And of course, what is going on with my connection here? Okay. All right. I guess my connection's okay. I thought for some reason I lost it. All right. Anyway, just to explain that, very good question, Sister Marissa. Thank you for asking that. Is that just to clarify that for people. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall remove from you all sickness and none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which you have seen, and all that you have known will he lay upon you, but he will lay them upon all that hate you, and you shall eat all the spoils of the nations which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you. Your eye shall not spare them, and you shall not serve their mighty ones, for this is an offense to you, or stumbling block. I kind of like how the Onkelos says stumbling block rather than offense. And even the Samaritan Pentateuch says snare. But if you should say in your heart, this nation is greater than I, how shall I be able to destroy them utterly? Okay. What's weird is that, I don't know if you noticed this, Mom, but in your version of Deuteronomy, it probably doesn't even say destroy. It says drive them out, right? Or dispossess them.
Drive them out.
It's weird. Like, why water it down? That's, to me, that's a little weird, because dispossess is a different action from killing someone. I mean, it's related, but it's not exactly the same action. So the Septuagint actually says destroy them utterly. You shall not fear them. You shall surely remember all that Yahuwah your Elohim did to Pharaoh and did to all the Egyptians. Okay, so we're at verse 19 now. The great temptations which your eyes have seen, those signs and great wonders, the strong hand and the high arm. Okay, how many times already Yahuwah has mentioned his right hand, his strong arm in this chapter? Like 3 times already. Okay, so that's Yahusha, by the way, for those those that don't know. Yahusha is referred to many titles in the Septuagint and other versions of the Tanakh, the Old Testament. He's usually called the right hand, the outstretched arm, the strong hand, the strong arm, the mighty hand. Those are all references to Yahusha pre-incarnate before he took on flesh. Also, the messenger of Yahuwah, the angel of Yahuwah, he's also known as. How Yahuwah your Elohim brought you forth, so Yahuwah your Elohim will do to all the nations whom you fear in their presence. Interesting that in their presence is not in the other versions. That's kind of interesting. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall send against them the hornets. I never understood this, whether this is literal or figurative.
I'm guessing it's literal.
The hornets until they that are left and they that are hidden from you to be utterly destroyed. Just in case, I'm going to keep my other targums on hand after we read this chapter, just to see if there's any expoundings on the hornets that are left and they that are hidden from you be utterly destroyed. You shall not be wounded before them, because Yahuwah your Elohim in the midst of you is a great and powerful Elohim. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall consume these nations before you by little and little. You shall not be able to consume them speedily, lest the land become deserted, and the wild beasts of the field be multiplied against you. So again, now it's referencing these wild beasts of the field as of like a concern, not have too many of them left. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall deliver them into your hands. You shall destroy them with a great destruction until you shall have utterly destroyed them. Now, this is mainly conjecture on my part. I wonder if they're regular beasts that Yahuwah created in the original creation, or if these are beasts that, are not exactly normal. I kind of wonder, because he's making a focal point to say, just so that you don't have these beasts of the field consume you. Yep. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
So I had a question, just on whether or not this is applicable or not, whether the concept behind this verse would still apply to this, because I've heard this verse used a lot in deliverance circles, and the way that it's used, I see the physical aspect of it, of what it's saying, but I'm wondering if it can be used in this sense, if the concept behind it still applies. Where it says in, I think verse, where were we? Verse 24, and he will deliver their kings into your hand. Okay, verse 22, and Yahuwah your Allah will consume these nations from your face little by little. You will not be able to destroy them quickly, lest the land become a wilderness and the wild beasts become too numerous for you. And the way that I've heard that applied as far as towards deliverance is that Yahuwah does not always deliver us from spiritual enemies immediately, especially if you're dealing with if there's a lot that you're dealing with. He does it little by little so that it gives you time to be built up in the word, time for you to renew your mind, because if he was to take away everything all at once and you were not renewed, you did not know how to you didn't have a prayer life, you weren't consistent in your word, you wouldn't be able to stand against these things. If everything was just to be removed at once, then once they get ready to come back in bringing 7 worse than the first, you would have no defense, so to speak. The animals or the wild beasts would be multiplied against you in a spiritual sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess they could get that meaning from this verse. I wouldn't exactly take a spiritual meaning from a verse like this, but I can see what they're doing. They're trying to relate it in a spiritual aspect of our lives, that Yahuwah does the same thing spiritually, how the spiritual relates to the physical, as Jim Staley sometimes says. I get what they're doing, but this verse of itself, just if we take for what it says of itself, it's talking about physical warfare, not spiritual warfare. So, but there are other places, though, where we see, it's funny you mentioned this, brother, because I believe there are places in the book of Psalms and other places where you see these entities called bulls of Bashan. I don't think they're talking about physical bulls. And this goes into the whole Nephilim subject and all that. Bashan was a big place for Og, king of Bashan. He was the leader of those giant armies there. And it seems like when Yahusha is inspiring David to write in Psalms, bulls of Bashan have surrounded me. And if I'm not mistaken, the fulfillment of that is when he's on the stake. And remember how it says Yahusha, what he did to the principalities when he was being impaled, talks about he made a show of them. So I kind of wonder if there's a spiritual application to wild beasts, like you're saying. There could be an actual verse, not this verse, but there could be an actual verse in Psalms that would kind of hint to what you're talking about. But yeah, I don't think it's unvalid. I just think for this particular passage, I wouldn't take a spiritual concept from. I think this mainly Yahuwah is talking about some type of beast of the land that he doesn't want to deliver all these giant tribes all at once, because then you have these beasts of the land that his people are not ready to. But I think the concept, though, just the concept of this self, he's not going to, get rid of all of our affliction at once with the spiritual warfare. I definitely see a truth to that, just not maybe in this verse. I think sometimes in Christianity, we try to spiritualize every verse that we come across. And that's the problem. There's no there's no like discernment between what should be physical, what should be allegorical. Yep. Go ahead, brother.
I can see that, and I would agree with that. Just one more thing that kind of came to my mind is that a lot of these if the shadim or the demons are the fallen or the disembodied spirits of these giant tribes that they went in and slaughtered, they'd still be the same things that we're fighting today spiritually, correct?
Yeah, like what the New Testament calls unclean spirits is pretty much the Raphaim, or the root word Rapha is the spirits of the Raphaim. So yeah, what Yahusha dealt with in his ministry with that, there was like thousands of basically Rapha in one man, technically. So there, and you really, another clue that they're not fallen. I mean, we've done a study about this for people that this is new to. I would recommend you go on the channel, search for the video called "What Are Demons Exactly?" The reason we know they can't be angels, demons did not exist until Genesis 6 happened. I mean, that's just a fact. Demons were not in existence in the original creation. There's not one verse that would hint that they were part of the 6 days of creation. Yahuwah did not create demons. Okay, so that's actual canonical. We don't even have to go to Enoch to understand that. Technically, you don't even have to go to Enoch to understand the concept of the Raphaim did not come about until the B'nai Elohim mated with human women. So that didn't come about until that event happened historically. So there's and that like, I don't want to get into it, because where people get confused, they start taking traditional expositions that pastors, whether willingly or unwillingly, they've taken theology from Islam, believe it or not, and confused demons as fallen angels. So that's another problem. They're not using the Bible. I don't think they realize it, because it's like traditional, preaching, like from one generation to the next. They don't know where they get this idea from, but they just carry on this tradition. But anyway, but good question, brother. Good, very good question. I'm glad you brought it up, though. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to go into a whole rabbit trail on that, though. Just trying to keep myself from a rabbit trail. No, you didn't go on one. I just want to keep myself from getting on these long expositions and stuff like that. So, but anyone that's curious about that's never heard that before, that demons are not the same entities as fallen angels, I recommend you look up our study on the channel. It's called "What Are Demons Exactly?" Okay, so anyway, so, and speaking of verse 24, we're about to be there. I think we're at 23 exactly right now. Yahuwah your Elohim shall deliver them into your hands. You shall destroy them with a great destruction until you shall have utterly destroyed them. And he shall deliver their kings into your hands, and you shall destroy their name from that place. None shall stand up in opposition before you until you shall have utterly destroyed them. Yea, you shall burn with fire the graven images of their mighty ones. You shall not covet silver, neither shall you take yourself gold from them. So this basically means these type of tribes, you can't take any of their plunder. You got to leave it there. It's accursed. And this is something I never saw before. They're not even talking about the graven images. They're actually saying don't take any of their booty, like leave it all. So that's interesting to me, where you see in other places with regular pagan tribes that are human, it's not the case. So just interesting to take note of that. You should offend thereby, because it is an abomination to Yahuwah your Elohim. So even taking just regular possessions of there would be an abomination for some reason. You shall not bring an abomination into your house, so you should be an accursed thing like it. Now, this is obviously talking about an idol here in verse 26. You shall utterly hate it, altogether abominate it, because it is a cursed thing. And we're going to the next chapter.
I like the way mine says, abhor it and detest it.
Yeah.
Utterly abhor.
Which, yeah, that's the actual definition of abomination. Most people don't realize that. It's not something just that he dislikes, but it's something that he
Very
hates
strong.
with every fiber of his being. So
Right.
what the NIV there is doing is pretty interesting. They're paraphrasing the meaning of that word, of the Hebrew word there. So that's the one thing I do like about the NIV in the Old Testament. They'll actually give you a decent definition of the word that's being used. Let's see here. I just want to check something real quick in my pseudo Jonathan Targum. I just want to see something really quick. What was the verse that talked about the beasts of the field? See here. What I find interesting too is, go ahead, Joshua.
So in Deuteronomy 8:25, where it says, "You shall burn their carved mighty ones in a fire. You shall not desire silver and gold from them. You shall not take them for yourself, lest you stumble on account of it." So when you get to Joshua 6:24, it says, "And the city was set on fire, burning with everything in it. Only the silver and gold and copper and iron did they set aside to be brought to the treasury of Yahuwah." And that Deuteronomy verse, is it just saying not to desire after the silver or gold, and it was not, but they were still allowed to give it to Yahuwah, or is it saying to destroy the silver and gold, which would imply that that Jericho was not included in those 7 giant tribes?
I would say definitely the fact that it's a different context. Yeah, what you're hitting it right on the head there. It's a completely different type of tribe. Number one, Jericho, as far as I know, had no Nephilim there. So you don't have to worry about that. The whole context, what we just read for FY for people that just jumped in, is these are specific nations in chapter 7 here that they're to do this to. They're not to do it to everyone, number one, especially with the marriage and all that. It says here, he even lists in verse 1 the certain nations you're to do this to. It doesn't say everyone. So that's when most people we've like, and this is the problem with spiritualizing chapters like these. This is the problem with trying to spiritualize it and say, oh, here in America, we're to do this. No, this is in the land. The land of Canaan that they're about to enter. That's the context of all this. It's in the land, is to certain tribes, the Girgashites, Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, which, by the way, were cursed because of the sin of Ham that went down to his son Canaan, who birthed these tribes. So we got to understand, too, is that these tribes were cursed. They were cursed. So and even the Targum Pseudo Jonathan in verse 2 words it as that. It says, "You blot them out and utterly consume them by the curse of Yahuwah," which I find interesting. So this is the only version of Deuteronomy that kind of almost hints it back to the curse of Canaan. So that's another thing we have to understand. These are specific tribes that are to do this to. So possibly, Brother Joshua, that's why Joshua 6:24, it would seem to contradict, but it really doesn't, because it's talking about a completely different group of people that Yahuwah never commanded not to take their silver or gold. And through the whole chapter of Deuteronomy 7, it's talking about those specific tribes. It doesn't ever deviate and say, you are to do this to all Gentiles. It's actually talking about 7 specific nations in verse 1, and then it goes through that same context through the whole chapter, if that makes any sense. He's being very specific with the targeted group that they're to do this to and where they're to do this. As far as I know, Jericho had no hybrid giants there that we could prove with scripture that it would be a contradiction what they did in Joshua 6. It seems like it's a completely different context. Number one hint to that is Rahab is grafted in. Number one hint of that. So we even have a proof of that Rahab would have been 100% human because she's grafted in. she's later talked about in the Brit Hadashah. Isn't she in Mom, she's in Yahusha's genealogy, right? Rahab? I could have swore I saw her.
I have to look that up.
It's either in the book of Ruth or one of those books in the Tanakh that give all the genealogies and stuff like that. And Rahab's counted as part of Judah, if I'm not mistaken. So like a grafting into Judah. So just something to keep our eyes on. And I'm glad Brother Joshua brought that up. That's a very good question. And it's something to keep our eyes on when Yahuwah is talking about specific groups, how they're to treat them versus regular pagans. And obviously there's a distinction here. There's something that makes these Canaanites different from the rest of the tribes, if that makes any sense. That Yahuwah tells them you can keep their women, you don't have to destroy their children, you don't have to destroy their livestock. So in certain regular pagan tribes. So anyway, so thank you, Brother Joshua, for bringing it up. That was a very good thing to look at. Very good question to answer, because that can get confusing. You'll see completely polar opposite accounts where it seems like there's a contradiction, but we're not looking at the context of who they're actually dispossessing in those chapters. So something to keep our eyes on. All right, abominable idols. I think we can go to chapter 8. And let's see, Deuteronomy 8:1. So we're going to continue here in the next chapter here. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy 8. See here. You shall observe to do all the commands which I charge you today, that you may live and be multiplied and enter in and inherit the land, and which Yahuwah your Elohim swore to give to your fathers. And you shall remember all the way which Yahuwah your Elohim led you in the wilderness, that he might afflict you and try you, and that the things in your heart might be made manifest, whether you would keep his commandments or no. He afflicted you and straitened you with hunger. Notice the with here, with hunger. So it's not one and the same thing. Fasting and being humbled are not the one and the same action. He's humbling them with hunger. Okay. And fed you with manna, which your fathers knew not, that he might teach you that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahuwah shall man live.
Big quote there.
Yeah, so this is what Yahusha quotes from, actually, to Satan in the Brit Hadashah. But another thing I want to take account of is, after I read this chapter, I'm going to give you a cross-reference from Isaiah 66, where he's showing that people can be humble and have a contrite spirit without the restraining food. So I just want to show that after this chapter, that it's not synonymous. It's not the same thing, fasting and humbling yourself. Sometimes it can be connected, but it's not the same action. Okay. Your garments grew not old from off you. Your shoes were not worn from off you. Your feet were not painfully hardened these 40 years. Okay, so that's something miraculous, almost like a miracle. Like their garments have not worn out for 40 years in the wilderness. And you shall know in your heart that as if any man should chasten his son, so Yahuwah your Elohim will chasten you. And you shall keep the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim to walk in his ways and to fear him. For Yahuwah your Elohim will bring you into a Tob, an extensive land where there are torrents of waters and fountains of deep places, issuing through the plains and through the mountains, a land of wheat and barley, wherein are vines and figs, pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, And that just reminds me, my mom and I, we were watching like this health nut guy, Bobby, early in the week, and he's trying to make people think don't eat wheat and stuff like that. You got to have pea pasta. You got to have this and that. I'm just thinking in my head, like, Yahuwah made wheat for us to eat it. Like people that don't want to eat like any type of grain or anything, it's like craziness. Like, I don't know. That to me, that's just crazy. The guy's name is Bobby Parrish. He's like one of those like crazy vegan health nuts that like anything that's not made of plant, we shouldn't eat. Yeah. Go ahead, Joshua.
It seems like that changes every year. They say this is good, and then they say it's bad, and it just it reminds me of, and they shall call evil good and good evil. Things that he has created to be good, they're now calling evil. Even saying that you shouldn't eat any type of meat, the whole veganism thing, that falls in with it too, calling good things evil.
Yeah.
And that's for those listening in and viewing in, that would be Isaiah 5:20. And you could also cross that with a warning of the latter days from Paul to Timothy. I believe it's I think it's 1 Timothy chapter 4, talks about doctrines of devils. They will forbid marriage. They will tell you it's evil to get married and have a wife, which Catholic Church does. They tell the priest you can't marry, you can't have a wife, even though biblically every priest in history, as far as the Levitical priesthood, had wives and had children. And then the other thing, forbidding foods, meats, broma. And actually broma means meats that are either allowable according to Levitical law or not allowed. So it's not general meats. They're actually most likely the context of the broma being used there in the Greek is saying that these people will be teaching doctrine of devils that would say that eating beef, chicken, salmon, cod, clean land animals and sea creatures, they would try to teach that that's sin to do that. Which is why Paul's addressing that to Timothy. He's saying that he's warning them about deceptions of the end times and doctrines of devils. They would actually teach you to not eat things that are kosher, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And for example, there's been this weird idea that honey's unclean being taught even in the body of Messiah. And it's like, where are you getting that from? There's so it's just that those doctrines of devils, which by the way, the Gnostics originated that. So what Paul's talking about is Gnostic, false, evil, satanic Gnostic doctrine. And he's trying to warn Timothy of that it's an end times thing that's going to happen. So anyway, let me see here. So we're up to verse 9 of chapter 8, a land on which you shall not eat your bread with poverty. You shall not want anything upon it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of its mountains you shall dig brass. I can tell you that ain't this land. I can tell you right now, he ain't talking about the land of America. That's all I'm going to say. None of his people are doing that well in this land right now. So I can tell you right now, he's definitely talking about the land of Canaan there. You shall eat and be filled and Barak Yahuwah your Elohim on the Tob land which he has given you. And again, like I say multiple times, Yahuwah never gave us the land of America. Okay, so obviously you can't spiritualize that. Take heed to yourselves that you forget not Yahuwah your Elohim, so as not to keep his commands and his right rulings and ordinances which I command you this day. And when you have eaten and are full and have built Tob houses and dwelt in them, and your ox and your sheep are multiplied to you, and your silver and your gold are multiplied to you, and all your possessions are multiplied to you, you should be exalted in your heart and forget Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, who brought you through that great and terrible wilderness, where is the burning serpents. And by the way, it's that's not what you think. It's not like a literal snake. If you look into the Hebrew, that's Seraph Nakash, if I'm not mistaken. So just something to look into. It's actually, I believe it's talking about seraphim angels, in my opinion. As in many other places, the Seraph Nakash are mentioned in scripture. It's Seraph, the Hebrew word Seraph's the root word for seraphim. So anyway. And scorpion and drought where there was no water, who brought you a fount of water out of the flinty rock, who fed you with manna in the wilderness, which you knew not, and your fathers knew not that he might afflict you and thoroughly try you to do you Tob in the latter days. And notice how they're being afflicted with food, with eating.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So just something I would like to keep in mind, because I know atonement's coming around and there's a big controversy in the body of Messiah about this topic of what it is to afflict yourself. Okay, so just something I want to show. So he's actually saying, I afflicted you with feeding you manna. Okay, so that's Deuteronomy 8:16. Okay, lest you should say in your heart, my strength and the power of my hand has worked for me this great wealth. But you shall remember Yahuwah your Elohim, that he gives you strength to get wealth, even that he may establish his covenant, which Yahuwah swore to your fathers as at this day. And it shall come to pass, if you do at all forget Yahuwah your Elohim and should go after other mighty ones and serve them and worship them, I call heaven and earth to witness against you. Now that's pretty important. So that's probably why Yahusha in Matthew 5 says, till heaven and earth pass away. So basically he's saying till these two witnesses pass away, not one jot or tittle of the Torah will pass away, is really what he's saying. So that's something I would like to just make a mental or physical note of. Deuteronomy 8:19 with, what is it, Mom? Matthew 5. Trying to remember. 17, I think it's 5:17-21. Okay, all right, so this day that you shall surely perish, which is kind of a similar wording to what Yahuwah warned Adam about eating of the tree. But notice that Adam did not die literally the day he sinned. He died in that day, which prophetically is within that 1,000-year expectancy. So a lot of people misunderstand that and think, you're going to die right away. And that's not the case. Anyway, verse 20, as also the other nations which Yahuwah Elohim destroys before your face, so shall you perish, because you hearken not to the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim. Now, this is what I like about the Targums here. In verse 20 here of the Onkelos Targum, it says, because you would not obey the word of Yahuwah your Elohim. So it's actually calling Yahusha their Elohim. Okay, so very interesting there. Okay, I don't know why it delays so much on that. All right, before we start chapter 9, I think I'm going to take a short intermission break. So please stay tuned, everyone. We'll be doing the part 2 of this Torah portion, Deuteronomy 9-11. So thank you for tuning in so far. Chapter 7 and 8, we'll be back very shortly. Shalom. Right, and let me just get off the shared screen. Stop live stream, stop recording.